Hello, everybody. Welcome to We Have Overcome. Tonight, with my special guest,
Yes,
Sabrina Gibson. How are you, Sabrina? It's a pleasure to have you here tonight.
it's a pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm doing awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, she's an overcomer and a survivor of domestic violence. And let's go ahead and get into the story, Sabrina. How did your domestic violence altercation get into the newspaper?
Well, I know a lady by the name of Valerie Stram, and
Uh-huh.
I did a testimony at the Sylvester Broom Center,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really don't know how it came about, but they did come to my house and asked me did I what I would like to do an interview, and I said yes. So that's how I ended up into the newspaper because during that time, um, domestic violence was high then and probably even higher now, but it was overcome and overwhelmed then, and that's been back in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked me, the newspaper, I can't remember the young lady, she asked me would I do an article. So I ended up doing two articles. So that's how I got into the newspaper.
Oh, okay.
I mind you, a lot of people that goes through domestic violence are ashamed or don't want to tell their story. So you have to be mindful of that.
True.
I knew I had a purpose of why I went through what I went through. So I needed to get it out there.
All right. Okay. Well, go ahead and tell us your story.
Okay, my story is I'm gonna take you in things that I can really kind of remember because, like I said, this happened in 2003,
Mm-hmm.
and what inspired me to get back into it is that I was listening to one of your segments on domestic violence, and God told me to get back into what I was doing with the domestic violence, spreading the news out.
Mm-hmm.
So to let everyone know, my abuse wasn't um, 4 or 5 years because I didn't allow it to be 4 or 5 years, but any abuse, a day, a week, or whatever is long enough. So
That's right.
just to say that, I can just speak on what I went through within that couple months. Just imagine what people go through when they go through it a couple years, you know.
Yes. Yes.
Well, the guy that I was with um, was an ordinary guy that we young ladies think is our future mate at the time. And during this time, um, he wasn't he wasn't violent to me or whatever the case may be. He wasn't. I didn't see any signs of it. Let me put it that way. And I guess we never do.
Right.
And then eventually, when I started seeing signs, um, I was kind of like pulling away because I know that's not me. That's not the way I was brought up. That's not me to be into a domestic situation with anybody. So I kind of knew right offhand that things was leading out of control.
Mm-hmm.
It started one day. He didn't come home, and so some told me to wake up. And when I woke up, a car rolled past my house, and it was him in the car with another girl. She let him out at the corner, and when she let him out at the corner, he came to the house. And right then and there, I told him, you can get your stuff and leave because I seen the girl that you was with, and that's who you was with. And so that led to a big altercation to where we started arguing and just fussing and fighting and cussing at one another and this and that. And so he took my keys to the car.
Mm-hmm.
And when he took my keys to the car, I told him to bring my car back, don't take off in my car. So he's going to take off in my car. And when he took off in my car, I called the police. So when I called the police, by this time the police arrived at my house, and I was telling them what was going on and everything. So the police, eventually he pulled up. And when he pulled up, he came into the house as if nothing happened, acting like ain't nothing happened, but the police is here for and everything. So they was talking to him. And at the time, my dogs, I had 2 pit bulls and they was running loose. So the police officers told me, could I get the dogs and put the dogs up while they talked to him? So while they talking to him and I put the dogs up, he dipped. I don't know in between what had happened, where he ended up coming to the house, where he dipped out the front door because the police said he had a warrant out for his arrest that I knew nothing about. So at that time he had left. He had left the house. So the police had told me at that time if I needed them to get him a car back, because I already told them once they leave, he come back, we was gonna get into it. I already knew it. And so they left. And as soon as they left, here he come from around the back of my house into the house. And my heart just dropped because I knew he was gonna have drama.
Wow.
And so I'm arguing with him, and I'm asking him to leave. So he won't leave the house. I'm on Mount Elliott Street at the time, and the street over was DuPont Street. So behind my house was another block, which was DuPont Street, and it was 2 empty houses there. So I proceeded to walk towards the back because I'm trying to de-escalate the conversation. I'm trying to leave the house because he won't leave. So I figured he leaves, I will leave. And so I get to one of the houses behind me, and I'm like, where's I gonna go? So I sat on the porch of one of the houses. Didn't think he would see me or saw me. I thought maybe he thought I just left, go down the street somewhere and just left. Here he come, I look up and he's staring me right in my face, and I'm sitting on the steps of this house trying to think what I'm gonna do because I didn't want to involve my family. I knew that if I involved my family, it would be worse. And I didn't want to involve them because I did love this man, and I did have what if he's sweet. I'm thinking, what if I wanted to get back with him and I didn't involve everybody? Right. So I didn't want to involve everybody because I knew I loved this man, but I'm trying to de-escalate this whole conversation or this situation. So he said, Sabrina, let's go back to the house. And I said, no, I'm not going back to the house with you because we're going to fight, and I know it's not going to be pretty if I go back to the house. He said, what I tell you? I said, I'm not going back to the house. So when I got up, he kept pushing me and trying to push me back to go towards the house. And I kept saying, leave me alone, I'm not going to the house. So at this time, I slipped and fell. I got to think about some movie stuff, so I slipped and fell, just like this, So at this time, when I slipped and fell, he picks me up and tried to make me walk towards, going back to the house. So I seen this 2x4 board, and all I could think was to pick up that board and just go to whamming, and that's what I did. I picked it up and I just started whamming, just hitting wherever I thought to see so he can leave me alone. I slipped and fell, and at that time when I slipped and fell, he picked up the 2x4 board and he started hitting me. So when he started hitting me, he hit me on my leg, and I'm steady kicking because I'm trying to kick the board off me as he was hitting me. By this time, he picks me up and he said he's using our foul names, get back to the house. So the next thing I could know less to do was to faint. So I faked a faint and act like I couldn't breathe or something. So he kind of panicked and went towards the house. And when he walked towards the house, I got up and I hid inside it was a garage right there, and I hid inside the garage. And so as soon as I could catch my breath, he opened the garage. I guess it was the door or the garage was halfway open or whatever. But anyway, I eased in the garage. He came right there and told me, "Didn't I tell you to go back to the house? Didn't I tell you to go back to the house?" And I said, "No, I'm not going back to the house. I'm not going back to the house." So this time I'm exhausted. I'm just exhausted. So this time I really just fainted. I just fainted, and when I fainted, he left. And as soon as he left, I crawled on the other house that was across from the house that I was sitting at. I crawled and I laid down on the porch to catch my breath because my leg was swelling and it was hurting. I was in fear for my life and everything, and I wanted to catch my breath because I knew I would have fell in the middle of the street or something. So once I laid there and realized he wasn't coming back, I made it around the corner to a neighbor that I knew that should stay on my street. So I made it to her house. Mm-hmm. When I made it to her house, they asked me what's wrong and everything, and called the ambulance and everything. Then here he comes. He comes in the house like, I'm like, really? Ain't nothing happened. Like, what's wrong with you? This and that. And so they called in the ambulance. He trying to play dumb, like he don't know what's happening and everything. Uh-huh. So then I get into the ambulance, and the ladies, the paramedic kept saying, "Well, who did this to you? Who did this to you?" In the meanwhile, she's still trying to strap me in the seat, in the gurney and everything. And I'm trying to get her to look at me so I can kind of nod to who did it, you know?
Right. Oh, and he's so in the ambulance with you. He was in the ambulance with you.
Yes, he was standing right there. He was standing there all during this time, trying to make sure, like, he didn't know what was going on. And I'm gonna go get your purse so you can get your medical card and everything and all this and all that. Yeah. And so finally, when they got ready to take off to take me to Hurley, I told the paramedic, I said, it was him that did this to me. And she said, "Oh, okay." So when I get to the hospital, I'm telling you, this was like a Lifetime movie. And it really was. I just couldn't really believe it because it was just that serious, like a Lifetime. I was watching a Lifetime movie. Mm-hmm. So I get to the triage, and she asked me my information. By this time, he didn't came with my purse and everything, and you know how you just you be talking to somebody, and the lady looked at him, and I guess he must have thought I said something to the lady. So him and the lady get into it, and I'm like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next? Because I really thought he was just gonna tear up Hurley Hospital. I really did. I just knew it was gonna be some disaster, really, some real bad disaster. Mm-hmm. So by this time, they gets me into a room and everything, and here he comes. Mind you, during the times he's checking on me, he's checking to make sure the police ain't coming. So he'll go out the room, come in the room, go out the room, and trying to make it look. And I'm trying to get help. I'm trying to let somebody look at me so I can get an eye contact or something, So the doctor comes in, the doctor checking my leg. While the doctor checking my leg, he's steady trying to cover me up. The guy was trying to cover me up so the doctor won't look at me. And the doctor keep asking me who did this to me. And I'm trying to get the doctor to look at me so I could, because at this time I didn't know what he really was going to do. Right. So I'm trying to just get eye contact and let them know so they can call the police or whatever that it was him that did it. Yeah. So by this time, he went out to check to make sure the police weren't coming and everything. And so, type of domestic violence, and you call the police, get the badge information. I ended up going back home, and when I went back home, I knew I had to come up with a plan. I had to come up with a plan because mind you, I've been knowing all along that I want to leave this guy because certain things just wasn't adding up. And I knew I was going to have the structure when I left him. I knew this. I already knew this. So we had kind of talked about this in front of, it was like me, him, and my kid's granny one day. We was talking, and we had kind of talked about what if I didn't want him anymore. And he made the statement. He said he'll never let me go. You hear guys say that, but you think they just, talking off the side of their head. So mind you, that's another red flag. If some guy tell you that, take heed and remember that, because a lot of times they're not playing. So he said that. So I already knew that I was gonna have to come up with a plan to get away from this guy. Latricia, he got a job at Save a Lot, right there on Balance. I stayed on Mount Elliott Street. My kids' grandmother was going out of town. I knew I was gonna have this structure, and I kept thinking maybe I could act like I'm moving, maybe I can get my windows boarded up, just act like I'm moving or whatever. So I had told my kids, I had told my boys, I said, I'm gonna take him. This was his first day at work. I said, I'm gonna take him and drop him off, and I want y'all to take your clothes up because we're leaving. I mind you, I took him and dropped him off on Bellinger. By the time I got home to throw me some clothes and stuff in the suitcase and got in my car and got to the corner, he was back at the house.
Oh my God.
He was back at the house. And how I knew he was back at the house, because I called my neighbor. She was telling me he was back at the house. He had took all my kids' electronic stuff, computers. He was walking out the house with everything. He vandalized the house real bad. I mean, when I say vandalized, my glass tables, syrup, power. I mean, just like if somebody came there and was robbing a place, you know how you tear everything up? My house was a mess. It was a total mess. So by this time, I called the police, and they comes out. He's nowhere in the area at the time. So I had to I'm just jumping around things because, like I say, it's been a while. So I'm just giving y'all some scenarios of things that he has done to me.
That's fine.
I was on a bowling league, and we was having our banquet that night, and so I knew, because I had left him that day when I dropped him off at his job. He came back to the house. I knew he would be at the bowling alley. Be there. I'm gonna be at a hotel with me and my kids, and for him to bring me some money when he left. And sure as my name is Sabrina, he came up to the bowling alley looking for me. It was like I knew everything he was gonna do. It was like I was always a step ahead of him. Okay, by this time I'm at the hotel. And by this time, I'm really fed up. I'm like, I'm not gonna let him run me out of my house anymore. So my son's no, let me take it back. I said I wasn't gonna let him run me out of my house. So the next morning, I got up from the hotel room on Miller Road. I left from Miller Road. Came down Ballinger. This is early in the morning. And usually early in the morning, there's all kind of police out.
Right.
This day was no police out. Because I came from Miller Road down to Ballinger, all the way down to Pearson Road, all the way to Pearson Road up. I made a circle looking for police. So at that time, I was going to Heavenly Host. And when I came to Dartmouth, I seen that my bishop was at the church. So I stopped and I told the bishop, I said, I need some help. I need PPO papers or something. I need some help. I said, I'm not running anymore from this guy. I'm not gonna let him run me out of my house anymore. And I'm trying to find police officer somewhere, and ain't none out this morning. Usually they out everywhere. This particular morning, I couldn't find out one. So he gave me a name, and he told me to go down to the police department. Down to the police department, and told me who to ask for and ask for PPO papers. So I get down there, and I asked for PPO papers. And the lady told me that the judge said he wasn't going to sign no PPO papers. I said, what you mean he ain't going to sign no PPO papers? He's busy right now. He can't sign no PPO papers. So at this time, I'm frustrated because I'm trying to do things the right way. And at this point, I didn't care if they took me to jail or not. But I stood in the courthouse and I told him, if y'all do not get him to sign these papers as of right now, I'm telling you right now, every police in this facility can meet me at 2106 Mount Avenue because it's going to be a shootout. And when that, the lady got up and she went and the judge signed the PPO papers. But it took me to go off and make a threat in order for them to do anything.
Right.
So when they sign the PPO paper, make sure that they sign everything, because they could sign a PPO paper saying that he can't be in this facility, but you got to make sure everything is signed on, checked off on that PPO paper. That's the trick to it. So, ladies, if you need a PPO, make sure everything is signed on it.
Now explain that, Sabrina, when you say make sure everything's signed. So if it's not signed, then what does that mean? Like, explain that to them.
Okay, when I say sign, make sure they check off everything, because a PPO paper to be like, he just can't be 10 minutes, he's going to be 10 feet away from you. It don't mean he could be across the street and it don't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? It's a I wish I had a copy of it, but it's certain. Just make sure all the boxes on the PPO paper are signed, because he could be in Myers and still could be in Myers. But the judge told him at the time I went to court that if I was in Myers, he had to leave.
Okay.
So he on the PPO paper, it's certain boxes and stuff. Just make sure everything is checked off, because it could mean he can't be 2 minutes, two spaces from you, but he could be on your city sidewalk.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So make sure everything is signed on there. Specify that everything is signed on there.
That's good, because he
could be next door and it won't be nothing.
Got you.
If everything is not signed on, if everything is not checked off on the PPO paper.
That's good. I'm glad you brought that out.
In the midst of me getting the PPO papers, I went home. I went to the house, me and the kids. I went into the house and looked at all the mess that I had to clean up. So I told the kids, because he had took all the TVs and everything out, I said, well, let's go to the renter center and I'm gonna get y'all TV so I can be cleaning up the house. So as me and kids got in the car, he came out the house. I took the kids to their grandparents' house, and I told her, okay, and my son's grandpa, I take the kids over to the grandparents' house and everything, and he gives me the gun, so I'm going back to the house because I want to clean up the house, because I refused, I was not going to run from him anymore. As soon as I pulled up in the driveway, he came out the house, and mind you, I got a Bible cover and the gun sitting inside the Bible cover, because I'm about to blow his brains away. And my sister pulled up. So when my sister pulled up, he left. And when he left, I didn't have to do what I thought I was going to have to do, because I got fed up to where I wasn't going to run anymore from him.
Yeah.
So during all this that I went through, back when I graduated, I had a lady told me that I had a ministry, and I never understood what she meant when she said that I had a ministry. But when I went through this ordeal with this guy, I kind trying to find out what my ministry was, because during this whole ordeal, Latricia, I was strong. I didn't shed a, it's like I couldn't cry. I wasn't afraid to stand up to him. I wasn't afraid. It was like that saying with that footstep about God.
Yes.
He's there when you don't know that he's there. It was like he took over my body and I didn't know, because I didn't feel none of this. I didn't feel none of this. This ordeal was so, it was so hard to explain, because even when the police did catch up with him, she didn't know if they was going to let him go or not. And she told me off the record. She said, off the record. She said, I'm going to tell you off the record. I don't know if they're going to keep him, but I advise you to get a gun. She said, because there's something about his eyes. She said it was something about his eyes. The neighbor down the street, when she saw him, she said it was something about his eyes. That morning, I'm bad because I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I want to say I'm gonna need to sit down and really just put stuff in order, because there's just so much that he did.
It's okay. Go ahead. Take your time.
Mind you, he had my house set on fire. He had my neighbor's house firebombed. He had my son's grandparents' house firebombed. He had my car set on fire. I had called the police one day. The day he set the car on fire, I had called the police. He called me on the phone after I talked to the police and told me everything that I told the police. And I'm like, is my phone tapped? Because back then it was cricket. I had cricket. And I heard about people's phone getting tapped and stuff. I had to call and see what my phone wasn't tapped. And this lady told me, she said, I promise you, he told me word from word what I told the police, to where another saint of God told me that's how Satan works. So I mind you, these are stuff happening to me, and I didn't have a fear in me. Wow. I didn't fear none of this. I can honestly tell you, I wasn't afraid of none of this. I was shocked to hear some of this stuff, but as you put things together, because he told me, he said he'll never let me go because nobody else had me. He also told me once upon a time that he said, I love you. He said, but the devil makes me do this. He said, I don't know why I did this. And at that time, I didn't understand. But when I kept putting stuff together, and then when she told me that's how the devil works, that he can know word for word what I said, I said to myself, he was possessed. I was dealing with a demon. Honestly.
I believe
I was honestly dealing with a demon. And it added up. I didn't understand it then, but as time went over and I put things together, he was trying to let me know. She said it. The police officer said something about his eyes. My neighbor said something about his eyes. And that's nothing but Satan. Right. Right. Because it's a spirit. Dealing with Satan. I was dealing with Satan. Because I am a child of God, I didn't back down, which most women would. And telling my story, I just want to say, have you a plan? I even took the class and got a certificate for domestic and sexual assault ward, and it teaches you that have a plan. Have a plan. And you need a plan because these women out here, your significant other could be a police officer, could be a judge, could be any of these high appointed people. And a lot of times they are, and they got connections. They got connections to where they can find out your whereabouts at all times. Because I had a girl that I stayed at the shelter with was trying to get away from a police officer, and he knew all her moves. He knew all her moves.
Wow.
So be mindful, and you might be scared, but be mindful and just, like you say, take your time and think things out. Because I ended up going to the shelter, and I didn't want to go because everybody thought he was trying to kill me. I didn't think that. I thought some guys think they can get you through material things. They think if they take this from you, and I'm not a materialistic person. Yes, I worked hard to accumulate these things for my son and for my home. But as far as me gotta have it and this and that, and I caught sales for stuff that I had. So I'm not a materialistic thing, and that's what I thought. I thought maybe he thought he could hurt me through materialistic things. So I ended up going to the shelter because they thought he was trying to kill me. When I get to the shelter, I'm like, I don't want to be here. And so in the shelter, we had these group meetings. I listened to everybody. And I said, I wasn't going to say nothing. And I said, no, you're going to talk. And so this is what I told the ladies, because all the ones that was there, most of them was dependent on a man, most of them had small kids, and most of them didn't know what they was going to do, and because he was the sole breadwinner. So I stood up and I said, this is what you got to do. I said, first of all, you got to do for you. You can't keep dependent on a man. You set goals for yourself. Just because you got kids do not mean you cannot make it. They ought to give you the will to want to make it. Just because you got kids don't mean you can't be successful in this, you can't be successful in that. You have to set goals, you have to put God first, and you have to make them sacrifice. All them designer mess that you need, you don't need that. You put your priorities in order, and you can make it. And from that point on, Latricia, I had every woman in my room praying every night. We was praying.
All right.
It was like they looked up to me. It was like it was like I was supposed to be there.
Yes.
Like I said, God put you in a position, in a certain situation to help others. And that's why I can't just sit on my testimony, because my testimony could be out here helping someone else.
That's right.
Because before I left Michigan, they wanted me to go into the schools because it's real bad into the schools. Our young ladies are going through it. It's real bad. It is real bad.
With that age group, right?
So
You're talking about that age group. The school kids are abusing, subjected to abuse.
They are abusing these young girls that's with boyfriends in the schools.
Yeah.
It's starting in the schools. And that's before I left. Before I left, because they wanted me to go into the schools and talk about it as well, but I ended up coming down here. So we need some advocates also into the schools, because there are domestic violence in the schools with these teenagers. Very bad.
Yes.
Very bad. And I just want to say that if you're going through this, you do not have to go through this alone. There are different agencies out there to help you. You're not going to leave until you're ready to leave. And that's the point. You're not going to leave until you are ready and fed up to leave. But when you leave, have a plan. I can't stress that enough. Have a plan so you'll know what to do in these situations. Get the PPO papers. You have to call the police. Call the same ones. Get a record. It's called a paper trail. Let me put it that way. Get a paper trail. Because if you have to come down to where you have to self-defend yourself and shoot, they got a paper trail. You can't be reliable because you done did the right thing. You done did the right thing into to letting them know. How many times you hear now that you let somebody know this, and then they took it and brushed it under the rug and this and that. Get a paper trail. I can't stress that enough. Get a paper trail. Lord forbid, if I had to shoot him, it would have been justifiable because I had a paper trail. I had a paper trail. I had a paper trail. But like I said, I can go on and on with stuff that he did, but I'm just here to advocate that if you are in that situation, get out before it's too late. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
It's not.
When I did my newspaper articles, and I worked at Scott School at the time, and I had so many women, nurses, these basketball players that you and I went to school with that was good basketball players, females come up to me, commending me. They've been through it. I had guts to stand up and they applaud me for it. And I wouldn't have knew that this was going on if I hadn't did my articles. Right. It's not just low class women. It's not just people in the ghetto. It's not just
come on, say that, because there's no respect.
I got 20 kids. See?
That's right. Come on, tell it. That's right. I'm saying, go ahead. You telling the truth. That's right.
It's all walks of life.
Yes.
You got nurses, you got lawyers, you got school teachers, it's so, that's what shocked me right there. Because here's little old me. And when these people that was good basketball players in school and a nurse pulled me, I didn't know this lady. She told me she worked at Hurley's and she went through the same thing. And she commended me. She commended me for stepping out. That's why I know it's a need for it.
Right.
It's a need for it. Because you thinking it's just little old me, I ain't got no high school diploma, but no, baby, it's people with masters. It's people with, and let me get this out there too. It's men going through it too.
Yes, it is.
It's men going through it as well. Yes. They just don't step up because of they ego as being a man, but men go through it as well.
Yes, they do.
You're not gonna hear about it as much, but they go through it. Yes, they go through it.
They do.
Right now, I even had asked God to just get me out of Flint, get me away from him and this and that. And then I turned around and said, no, never mind. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to let him control my life. I'm not going to run. I'm going to stand my ground. And my oldest son at the time was 19. And my son wanted him bad. Oh, my son wanted him bad. My son had caught him in the streets. And I had to tell my son, let it go. I said, we ain't walking for nothing. I can honestly say, when it would take, my house was set on fire. My car was set on fire. A house by itself, I lost everything. When it would take you years to get back on your feet from a house fire, right? I was back on my feet within 4 months. Wow. 4 months. Wow. I was back on my feet.
Wow, look at God.
4 months. Mm-hmm. 4 months. When I say God showed up and showed out, He did.
Yes.
I went to a furniture store. I ain't have no house insurance, rent insurance. I ain't have none of that. None of that. Me and my son's granny went to a store and I was just getting prices. A mattress. Told me I had a house fire. Got to the car. She told us to come back. And me and granny looking at each other. And she said, there's a full set message right there that's just off that truck. Take it.
Look at God.
She said, you can have it. Wow. She said, I don't know why I'm saying this, but hurry up, you know how to double work? She said, take it. She said, you can get you a truck or a van to come up here and get it. She said, that's yours. They just delivered it off the truck. The driver on the truck said, I'll take it home for you.
Wow.
I couldn't do nothing, Trisha, but cry. I couldn't do nothing. Just tears was just out of my. I couldn't do. That's where my tears came from, right there. The goodness of what God did. That's where I got tears from.
Right.
Because it was nothing but God. When I was at the shelter, they had a bag full of brand new clothes. Could nobody fit them clothes?
They was there for you.
They was 10s then, because I was 10 then. Trisha, everything in that bag I could fit.
Wow.
When I say everything,
wow.
I was placed back. Matter of fact, I would call him. He had a sister that was a Christian, and doing everything that he was doing, I was letting her know what he was doing. Mm-hmm. She said, Sabrina, she said, I hate what my brother is doing for you. Doing to you. She said, but you know what? God don't replace everything that you got. And I'm looking at her, I'm saying to myself, that's what you're saying. You know, I didn't understand the multitude of this, right?
Right.
But when he replaced me 10 times more than what I had, baby, I understood exactly what, because anything that pertained to him, God burnt it. It was in that fire.
Wow.
He burnt it. And he replaced me 10 times more than what I had. 10 times within 4 months. Within 4 months.
Wow.
I was blessed to the fullest. To the fullest. I went to court. I even, because home invasion is considered supposed to be automated 15 years. So because he went in my house and he was taking stuff, and he kept calling me. He would call me on the phone when he ain't supposed to be calling me in the first place. Mm-hmm. So my mama bought me a tape recorder, and I would tape it. Every time he called, I taped the conversations because I was trying to get him to tell me where the stuff was because I would got him for home invasion. I even went to visit him. The detectives them set it up. They had me wired.
Did they?
To get him to admit. Yes. I was wired.
Wow.
Because we're trying to get him to admit that he took stuff out of my house and could got it from home invasion as well. Uh-huh. So I went to the point where they wired me. I agreed to go visit him and they wired me. But that didn't turn out. He used that against me. He tried to say I came to see him and get back with him, which we knew it wasn't the truth. But I was tested on many levels.
Yes. And how old were you at the time? How old were you at the time when you experienced this?
22, 23, 24, 20, something like that. Maybe 30, I don't know. Girl, that was so long ago.
You were young. But you made a good point because you made a good point, Sabrina, because the strength that you had and God gave you to really endure that and overcome that. Most women stay in that situation because of fear, because they're afraid of, where they gonna go. They, I don't have nowhere to go, especially when they've been isolated from their family, and like you said, you didn't want to involve your family because you thought, okay, maybe I'll go back to this man. And that's a good thing too, because a lot of times we involve the family. If you're not truly done with that person, don't involve your family like that, because you can get, even from us coming from Flint, Michigan, there's many times where there have been domestic violent altercations, and they are called a brother, and the brother ended up getting killed through that whole situation, Yep. So you have to be mindful. You made some good points. Like you said, 3 things you said, and I want to make sure that we clarify that and put that back out there. Have a plan. That was one thing that you said. Have a plan. I can remember when I had to escape my situation, like you said, I had to wait till, the person went to work, and when they went to work, now mine actually worked when I did the same thing, and years ago, that's how my mother got us out of the house. She was in a domestic violent relationship, and she left my father while he was at work. She left and she already had a plan, like you said. She already had us a house on Alma Street. We were living on, I think, Black Street at the time. She already had a house for us on Alma Street. All we knew is that, all of a sudden we in a new house. My father didn't know where we were or anything, but she made a plan, like you said. So you got to make a plan. And one thing, you can't tell them your plan. You can't act like that's something that you're getting ready to do. Is leave the house, because if they feel threatened or any kind of way, then they really will hurt you. So you got to be careful on how you move. You got to move correctly on that. And then there was another thing you said, get a PPO. I just want to elaborate on everything that you said so it can be clear. Get a PPO. You said check all the boxes on that PPO.
Make sure that judge check all the boxes.
Yes. Make sure the judge check all the boxes, because if he comes, if the PPO only says he can't come 10 feet, that means he can come in your vicinity. He just can't come close to you. So he could be in the vicinity where you are. And see, that could be intimidating too. So if someone had a gun, if someone had a weapon, they could still get to you, because they can come in your vicinity. So make sure that you check all the boxes off, or have the judge, like she said, check all the boxes off too. And then it was another thing you said too, that get a paper trail. Make sure you have a paper trail. So when you mean that, you mean report it. Make a report. Keep reporting every time something happens.
If you call the police, make sure you get their badge number. You can't remember their name. If you have to call them again, make sure you can call the same two that came out there, because they'll remember. It's like a paper trail. They'll remember that same incident. So if you can get that same two, because I called them same two after I told them. I said, we don't fight. I don't need y'all two again. What's our badge number? And sure enough, I needed them. And so when they came out to the hospital, they said, you was right. You told us that you, and I said, yes, you get a paper trail. Yes. Most definitely.
Well, that is good advice. That is some good advice. And, I bid you Godspeed, and I pray that, you do everything that God told you to do, that, how courageous you are, to even talk about that. And, because a lot of women are afraid, or they're ashamed that they went through that situation. But I want to say that, whatever the situation you went through, is not your fault. It's nothing to be ashamed about, because this is happening all over the world in this second, in this minute that we're talking about this right now. Somebody is in a domestic violent relationship. Somebody is getting abused. So we have to make sure that we talk about it. So, and we pray that even as we're having these segments, and if these things are going on, and you're on the line and you're going through this situation, there's domestic violence hotlines, there's shelters that specifically are for domestic violent. They're domestic violence shelters, okay? And so when you go to that shelter, they will not release any information. Any of your information.
They will not tell you that you're there. So if they call looking for you, they won't tell you that you're there. It's plenty of help out there. You're not alone. I want to touch on this as well. There's so many signs. And one of the major signs is that significant other will try to tear your self-esteem down. If they get your self-esteem down, they got you.
That's the truth.
If they can tear your self-esteem down, they have you where they want you. They can say you. And another thing, verbal abuse is worse.
Yes, it is.
Worse than physical. Sometimes I wish I just got hit because the hit belongs to verbal abuse plays on your mind, self-esteem down. And when they get you through that, you don't never want them to get your self-esteem down. I say never let them, never put your man before your children.
That's right.
Never.
That's right. That's right.
Never, because they'll play on that as well. Because if they get you fussing and fight with the kids, that's the next step. They'll pry on the kids as well. Yes. So you have to be very mindful of that. And my oldest son, just not too long ago, said, "Well, Mama, why would you put a God before us?" I said, "Baby, let me tell you something. Put God before you."
So we're going to get ready to close out, but I want to thank you.
Yes, it will.
Thank you for coming on and giving your testimony and giving us those great points that you gave us. Because we every segment we get something different out of it from the testimonies that most of the women tell. And I just appreciate that and appreciate you sharing that. And like you said, this was something that God has put in you. A lot of times we don't understand why we go through certain, and it's to help somebody else. So we can relate to it because we survived it. So like I said, I commend everyone that gives their testimony. That testimony is important because not only do it help us, but it helps somebody else. It helps the hearer. To understand that, if God delivered me, he could deliver you because it was God that did it. That's why the name of this segment is God. That's why the name of this segment is We Have Overcome. In Revelations 12 and 11, we have overcome, and they overcame them by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. That's how we overcome, because it was by the blood of the Lamb. It didn't have anything to do with us, because there's plenty of women that did not make it. It's plenty of women that died, and men that died through this, in these type of relationships. So I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And we go through things for a reason. We may not understand what the reason is until after we go through the storm. And then everything else will line up on why you went through it. Yes. I would have never imagined. I didn't even like play fight. To this day, the guys, when I was growing up, why you always hit me back? So my mama said, "You hit me, hit you back." So just imagine, even starting off with that, you don't put your hands on me. You don't put your hands on me.
That's right.
That's right. Thank you for having me anytime, and I hope to do more. Like I said, I promised God I was going to get back into it the other day, and I'm going to get back into it. And I want to advocate, and I just want to help, because it's a need for it. It's a need for it every day, not just domestic violence month. It's every day. It's every second, every minute.
That's right.
Someone is going through something.
That's right. It's every second. So, if your last words, what would you tell a woman that's in that situation before we get off? What would you tell her or him?
Love yourself. Have God first in your life. Love yourself. Have a plan. And go from there. That's all I can stress, is to love yourself first. You gotta love yourself. You gotta have God in your life. Even if you don't have God in your life, maybe that's the time to get Him in your life. Because we endure things for a reason. And that's the only thing that I can stress is to have God in your life and stay prayed up, and to just enjoy life, but don't be a fool with it, and have a plan. If you get in that situation, have a plan. Don't tell everybody all your business, because they go back and tell the person. Some stuff you got to do on the sneak tip, because you want to get out and you want to overcome, and you don't want to be a drastic or dramatic to your kids. You try to be smooth with it so it won't traumatize your kids.
Yes.
That's
good.
And that's all that I can, can't stress enough, is that, because it traumatized. I know my oldest. It did, to where he had so much anger, and I had to get on him. I'm doing okay. We've been blessed. I've been 10 times blessed. So it's nothing, just let him go about his business, because he real weak when he's on.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, again, we thank you, Sabrina, for sharing. And we're gonna, we praying for you, for your journey, in helping other women,
Thank you.
and I believe that you will be a great help to them.
Yes.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful
Well, thank
night.
you. Thanks for having me.